It's time for the Wally and Methot Show, presented by SportsInteraction.com. Now, here are your hosts, Brent Wallace and Marc Methot.
Welcome to the Wally and Methot Show, brought to you by SportsInteraction.com. I'm Brent Wallace, and he is Marc Methot, who would like to take this moment just to announce he's coming out of retirement to play for the Savannah Ghost Pirates of the East Coast Hockey League.
Oh, yeah. You're talking about Sean Avery right now with Orlando? I saw that. It's interesting because, and I'm not shit talking him by any means. Like, I follow on Instagram. He's pretty funny, but like, I've watched some of the clips of him skating out there, and he doesn't look like a 20-year-old, like 20-year-old legs. You know what I mean? Like, he looked a little slower. So it'll be interesting to see how that plays out for him. I'm assuming it's not just a publicity stunt, right? Like, it's got to be legitimate. So,
oh no, this is a total stop it. This is a total publicity stunt. He hasn't played since January 27th, 2012. That's 10 years ago in Connecticut.
I know. So are like, because you're going into the jungle, like, so there's going to be guys that are going to want to fight him. Like, I just don't understand what that dynamic looks like right now, but I'm going to want to tune in.
No, this is just to drive attention. He will play 3 minutes.
Would you not watch him?
2 games.
Would you? Oh, okay. Well, if you think he's only going to be there for, a cup of coffee and he won't get any ice time, then I probably wouldn't pay attention. But if he plays, 10, 12 minutes a game, I'm curious.
Meth, if Sean Avery plays 10 to 12 minutes a game after not having played for 10 years, then that says a lot about the league.
That's fair. I have no counter argument.
So I don't want to watch the league then.
Okay.
I will admit, I'll be interested to see his stat line after a game or two, but let's be serious. Like, this is nonsense.
Yeah. He takes pretty good care of himself. It's not the same thing, obviously. And I know when you're older, it doesn't matter how hard you work, you're not going to have those young legs and certainly more likely to get injured. But I'm just saying, but you're in great shape. All the theatrics.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, yeah.
You can only turn one way.
Yeah. Well, that's it. So I don't know. We'll see. Anyway, I don't want to give him too much attention here on the show.
All right, let's move on. The Wally Methot Show, brought to you by SportsInteraction.com, Canada's online casino and sportsbook. Go to SportsInteraction.com/Wally Methot for the most competitive live daily odds. So much going on that you can be betting on right now, but the Sens are taking a bit of a break. They've got the next 3 days off before they get back on the ice on Saturday, which we should see, by the way, Meth, our good friend Andrew Hammond take to the net. I would love to see Andrew Hammond back in the net.
I didn't know that they were playing Montreal. They're playing Montreal
in Ottawa.
Nice. Return of the burglar. Yeah, that's good for him, by the way. It's almost like our show gives these guys like this mojo. And I'm not just saying that, like, this isn't bullshit. Look what happened to Holdy. Holden comes on. We talk with him a little bit. All of a sudden he's a goal scorer. So, and
I'm just saying, Alex Formanton's been on fire.
Yep. Yeah.
So there's been
some guys got hurt.
we don't talk about those, man.
Yeah. We'll cherry pick the right ones. Anyway, that's good. Good to see Burglar in town. We'll have to watch him.
Yeah. Also in our show today is Cheryl Pounder, the 2-time Olympic gold medalist, and of course, current TSN analyst covering the Sens game. That chat, by the way, brought to you by Whitewater Beer. Enjoy the cool, refreshing taste of Whitewater Beer for a Legion Lager, Farmer's Daughter, High Tide, whatever. You can mix and match all the samples. I was just there last week. Had some great food. And by the way, use the Wally Methot, not the Wally Methot coupon code. We changed it. It's the Wham Show coupon code. Get 15% off your order. They will deliver it to your house in the Ottawa area.
Yes, they will.
Stop in Cobden and grab a bite and then grab a pint. Headlines, by the way. Here we go. So let's, I'm going to start with Thomas Chabot. After the Minnesota game on Tuesday, played his 300th career game. He's now 4 back of the lovely and talented Marc Methot for all time on the Sens list.
Yep.
He looks a little different because maybe he hasn't played 30 minutes a night for 9 straight games. It's been dialed back and he looks like a much better player.
Yeah. And well, and I think there's another little thing to add to that, Wally, particularly with the game. His big 2-goal game that he just had. I think he's paired with Artem Zub. You pair a competent defenseman, and I know there were some quotes today, and I think it was Capuano that was saying that, he compliments anybody he plays with, which of course we all agree is the case. But you want to maximize your all-star defenseman, right? You want to maximize his output as much as you can. And the only way to do that is to have him play with a competent D partner. So that was another little thing that I wanted to add, is that, lo and behold, he's playing with a really good defenseman now, and he's playing less time in his own zone, spending more energy being able to jump up into the play in the offensive zone. And, he's not going to score 2 goals and get an assist every night, but I thought he looked terrific in that game.
He's looked very good. His last 20 games, he's got 5 goals, 6 assists, 11 points. The Sens, by the way, 9, 8, and 3. And only 4 of those games he's played 30 or more minutes, right? And so you see, I think, the difference. Last night, or Tuesday night, I think was 21 minutes, 24 minutes, somewhere in there.
Yeah. Yeah. And that's his range. Like, to me, his range is 25 minutes. And that's still a lot of ice time in this compressed schedule. But I think with the emergence of Nick Holden playing as well as he has been and stabilizing a second D pair with whoever he's playing, which is a huge compliment to Nick Holden, that's allowed Capuano to be able to kind of manage Chabot's minutes a little bit more. He's not feeling the need to just throw him out there every other shift. So you have at least a competent 1-2 punch now on D for the time being. I still think they need a top 4, but for now, getting Zaitsev out of that top 4 and leaving him on the third pairing, I think has been a big change. I think it's helpful. And I think they need to continue to do that, because it's not working. And I'm sure he's a great guy, but he's had a million opportunities now to show what he can do out here, Wally. And it's not working. I just don't see it anymore.
Okay. A legit question, because, and I'll bring this up every time. I didn't play over 600 games in the National Hockey League, so I'll defer to you. I watched him on Wednesday. I thought Tuesday, more than I've ever watched. And I thought he was okay. Like, I thought he was, maybe it's because he played a third D pairing, that he was in the right role. He just looked comfortable to me. But again, I don't know the nuances or necessarily all the positioning that goes into it. Sure. I mean, there was some mistakes made by Ottawa defensively, but I didn't think he was horrendous by any stretch.
Yeah, he was okay. I guess because I'm just hyper focused on the mistakes now, with players, once they start, and it's like that when I played. So I've seen it a ton. Once you start getting labeled as a guy that's making mistakes, or you're going through a stretch where you're struggling, everyone's all of a sudden focused on that. And you tend to forget about the good stuff. Like, I was watching the game, and I thought, like, there were still some glaring mistakes, and it's always just chaos with him, I find. Whereas when you watch a player like Artem Zub, he's a little more relaxed. He's more competent with the puck. He's not wasting as much time. There's less turnovers. And then when you get Zaitsev back out there, I just find it's just chaos, and it's not from a lack of trying or effort. Like, he's working really hard, but he's not really accomplishing a whole lot. And then he's not a very big guy either. Like, that's another thing I want to say. I mean, it's not like he can compensate with size and range. So he's a smaller defensive-minded player that has to work very hard to complete those tasks. And, the physicality, as much as he's trying, he's not really bumping a whole lot of players off pucks. He's just sort of in survival mode all the time. And that's been my take on him. But, Brandstrom, I thought, has been playing fine. Holden's been really good. Zub's been terrific. Chabot looked really good. So, I mean, it's okay right now. I still think they need to go after somebody, though, to round off that top 4. Even if Sanderson comes in, I still think they're missing a piece.
Okay, you're making me jump to page 2 quickly. I'm going to bring up. Wally. That's okay. We're going to go right to Artem Zub. I'm going to call this Artem Move, because you've brought up his name enough. We got to drill down this. So Frank Saravalli, I believe last week now, made a comment when he's covering each team and about the Ottawa Senators pieces potentially on the move, and in it was Anton Forsberg, Nick Paul, Victor Mete, and a few other guys who were all UFAs, but Artem Zub's name is there, and people in Ottawa kind of lost their shit a little, and so I called Frank, and I'm like, what are you doing? Like, are you just trying to rile up the fan base? And he's like, what are you talking about? I'm like, Artem Zub is a legend in Ottawa. Why on earth would you say his name? There's no way he's moving. He's like, what? I have no idea. Like, I didn't know that Artem Zub was like this legend. And I'm like, yes. So now you've made everybody mad. And he's like, all I can tell you is his name has been mentioned. So I'm going to put it to you about moving him. But I will say, like, names get mentioned all the time, because obviously if you're the GM for a Stanley Cup contending team and want a piece, you're going to call about Artem Zub. So, is there any chance, Marc Methot, that Pierre Dorion makes a move and trades Artem Zub?
Well, you just cleared it all up. Like, thankfully, someone's got an inside track with Frank. I obviously don't. So that's good intel. And I think it just clears it up for everybody where it was just, and I think a lot of people sort of assume this after a while where, there's going to be interest in a lot of players that are, perhaps up at some point on their deals. And a lot of the insiders don't always realize that that's an untouchable player, right? I think a lot of us consider Artem Zub an untouchable guy. So is any player completely safe from being traded? No, I don't think so. I mean, you've seen some great players get moved, right? Like Wayne Gretzky can get traded, as I always say. Artem Zub can certainly get moved, but I think with Ottawa, I just don't see it. I don't see the benefit because, okay, maybe what? You get a first round pick. I mean, for sure, at least a first round pick, but then what? Then now you're stuck going after another top 4 guy that you potentially have to give up a first rounder for anyway. So it makes no sense for the Ottawa Senators to do it. Now, I'm not really competent when it comes to the numbers and the business side of it and collecting picks. I've never been in an administrative role or in the front office, so I don't really understand that. All I see is a really good player, and I don't understand why you would move him. It's not like he's on his last leg or he's in his mid-30s, so I'll leave it at that. You can't get rid of a top 4 defenseman right now on a rebuild who's in his mid-20s.
Okay, but here's the other issue, and it's the business side. And we know too well about the budgets that constrain the Ottawa Senators. So
Sure.
Artem Zub will play next year at $2.5 million. Followed that, he's a UFA. There is concern, and Frank and I talked about this, that they might think that one of the reasons they're talking about maybe moving Artem Zub is they're not sure that they can re-sign him for the dollar amounts they want to get him at.
I mean,
and if that's the case, yeah, but what if he wants 5? Like, I'm just picking a number.
Give it
what
to
if
him.
He wants $6 million.
Give it to him. I mean, you got to understand whatever the market is for his comparables, which I'm assuming is anywhere between lowballing 4 and high end 5 million.
Yeah.
I mean, it's a number. It's a top pairing defenseman. So if you're delusional and think that you can just leave him, like, look what this team will look like depth wise if you lose a player like Artem Zub on the back end. I mean, it's going to be a nightmare. I mean, defensively, it'll be a nightmare. And I'm sure if you're coming out of this so-called rebuild, I would understand if this is a team full of older players and you just can't retain them, yada, yada, yada. But this, let's be honest here. Like, I think the team loses a little bit of credibility if you don't re-sign this player. Nick Paul, there's an argument. Sure. I understand both sides. So I can't be too critical of the team there. You want to make sure it's the right dollar signs. And, his identity as far as where he belongs on the team depth chart is sort of in question, right? Is he a second line guy? Is he a third line guy? What are you willing to pay? But in Artem Zub's case, it's definitive. Like, he's a top 2 pairing. He's top 4 defenseman. I mean, I was making almost $5 million on my deal, and Eric was making whatever he was making. You can't just have one player and by the way, Thomas Chabot is a steal right now. It's not like you're overpaying for Thomas Chabot either. So like I said, you lose credibility if you trade him. That's my stance on it.
Okay, so let me be devil's advocate here. And that is, we talked about Artem Zub 2 years ago. We had no idea who he was. Now we talk like he's this untouchable, the greatest defenseman to ever lace up the Ottawa Senator skates, and that we can't be moved. Like, is there some point here we're overselling the play of Artem Zub? Can't we just go out and find another one?
Yeah, well, I mean, I wouldn't say he's the best defensive D-man this team's ever had. There's certainly been a few of us.
I'm being facetious, but
yeah, that was a joke. No, I know. So am I. I'm kidding. No, I think he's been such a pleasant surprise because he doesn't make any mistakes. Like, his reads are always on point. He's always like, and furthermore, like, how do I word this properly? He's not a very big guy. Like they don't have a lot of physicality back there. He
looks like Nikita Zaitsev to me.
Yeah, but he's very strong. He's just got that wiry strength. And in today's NHL, it's not as the players aren't necessarily those big lumbering guys that they were even 5, 6, 7 years ago. It's evolving, right? It's about speed. He's a very good skater. He moves the puck very well. I'm not going to get into everything he's good at. We all know he's a very competent defenseman, but I mean, man, it's just, I think people are just so pleasantly surprised because there's been a few seasons now where we've been kind of lacking this type of player. And now they finally have one. He's affordable and he's still relatively young with some mileage, left in his tank. So I don't know, I can keep going on and on, but do not move Artem Zub,
I saw last night, I think it's the third period, where he takes the puck from his blue line to the other blue line, and he's got it's like a rush, and everybody's all excited. And I could envision you. And basically, I felt like it was you skating through the middle of the ice because nobody expected it.
Yeah, well, it surprises people, right? And he'll really get recognized for his strong play when they have him with a guy like Chabot, because he's going to play more minutes. He's an excellent complementary player for Thomas Chabot, who is a perennial all-star, in my opinion. So that's his role. And that's where you need to capitalize on a play like Artem Zub. So I'd love it. And this all stems back to what I mentioned earlier. Nick Holden, all of a sudden, and he's always been very good. Like, he's a competent defenseman. He's very serviceable, but he's elevated his game again. And all of a sudden now that he's stabilized that second pairing, you've given the opportunity back to Artem Zub to get back onto the top line, elevating his responsibility, playing with Thomas Chabot, which is his role on this team.
So I think we started a couple weeks ago, and it may be only be a couple games, excuse me, is you said don't break up Holden and Zub because they couldn't figure out a pairing for Chabot. Are you okay now? Just leave Zub with Chabot and deal with everything else that happens afterwards.
Yes, because now I'm realizing that Holden can do that job as well. Like, at first you think, okay, Artem Zub will stabilize Holden a little bit. And I'm reluctant to even say that. And that's not a slight at Holdy. I haven't seen him play a ton as of late, and I was well aware of what Artem Zub could do. But now that I know that Nick Holden can complement just about anybody with the way he plays, he's so calming, he doesn't panic. That's great. So now all of a sudden I'm like, okay, I'm comfortable with Nick Holden playing with whoever. I'd like to see a consistent partner with him. I wish it was Brandstrom. I wish you could just put Brandstrom there all the time. I just don't know that works. Like, when you're seeing him play against heavier teams, he struggles a little bit. So I don't know who the right partner for that position with Holden is on the second pairing. It's going to continue to be a revolving door. But in the end, my final point and conclusion to all this is that I'm happy that DJ and Capuano have decided to put Zub up there with Chabot again. You got to maximize that output of Thomas Chabot, and you just can't do that with anybody else.
By the way, Nick Holden has 3 goals in the month of February as of right now. That's 11 games in. That's the third most on the team behind Kachuk and Tim Stützle. There is one other note, Michael Del Zotto, which we don't talk about very much, and as a trade deadline approaches, I understand perhaps there isn't a spot for him on this roster, but he has 19 points in 17 games in Belleville. I think he's either 5th or 6th in scoring. This is an interesting piece to me. I don't know that you can, I don't know what you move him for, if you can move him, but there's got to be a team that will take on next year's $2 million cap hit, add some depth at the deadline here with Michael Del Zotto. I gotta feel like there's got to be a spot for him somewhere based on the numbers he's putting up.
Yeah, he's doing his job like that, and that's that's a hat tip or stick tap, however you want to say it, to Michael Del Zotto. I mean, to go down there into the American League as an established NHL player who's been around the league for a long time, it's easy to kind of lose sight of your goals, and it's easy to start pouting and get upset and mad and blame other people. Instead, he's gone down there and he's put his nose down and worked really hard. And you got to think that he'll probably get rewarded for that. You mentioned teams potentially looking for depth on defense. That's what I'm thinking too, Wally. I mean, if you're a team making a push right now and you're concerned with potential injuries, or maybe you're a little thin after your 5-6, that's a guy to have in there that can jump in and at least be serviceable. I question the foot speed a little bit if I'm being critical. But again, as a player that can jump in for, to replace a player due to injury, as a depth guy, I'm okay with it. And like I said, I can't stress this enough. Good to see Michael Del Zotto do what he's doing now. And that's huge for some of the players down there too, to have a leader like that go down there and help kind of teach and work with the younger players is always a big bonus for an organization. And
I know this is a long time ago, but it reminds me of Wade Redden, goes to the minors, ends up going to Boston, who are trying to win a Stanley Cup, and he's a depth guy. You've got Wade Redden potentially as a guy that could fill in. So I got to think that there's a spot for Michael Del Zotto somewhere in this upcoming next month here as they get closer to the trade deadline. By the way, I'll make this quick. I know Craig is going to lose his mind with us talking so long. One of the reasons I think this blue line looks so good might very well be the goaltending has been pretty good of late.
That helps.
And so there's a lot of question marks. So I'll give you the last 10 days. By the way, they played 16 games in 10 days. We haven't even mentioned Colin White returning. 16 games in 10 days. they have given up 36 shots against, which is the most in the National Hockey League. But they have a 936 save percentage and a 230 goals against average. That's a team stat. Like Anton Forsberg is a UFA, Meth. He has 11 of the team's 19 wins this season. I understand Philip Gustafsson's on a one-way deal next year. Are you willing to give up on Anton Forsberg because you have Gustafsson on a one-way deal?
Yeah. And this might be a little bit of recency bias too, right? Like, and I'm always reluctant to go there because a player might be playing very well and all of a sudden we're jumping through hoops to defend him.
Right.
But I mean, for a backup, so he's not a starter. He's a backup goaltender, but he's a good backup play. Like his numbers back it up, right? Like if you're looking at his numbers this season, despite some soft goals in the little, I don't know, what was it, a month or two ago where he had a couple stretch of games there, or a small stretch of games that he didn't look very good. He was a little shaky.
I don't think he was great Tuesday night against Minnesota. I don't think he was outstanding.
I know, but he doesn't need to be, right? Like, just if he plays big, I'm agreeing with you, by the way. If he plays big and he's able to give you an opportunity to win a game, especially as a backup, he's done his job.
You want
like
wins.
It's not his job to be your starter, right? He's not getting paid starter money. That's Matt Murray, who's making $5 million or whatever it is. So would I sign him? Yes, but it depends what he's asking for. Like, I don't know what his camp's looking for right now. He's older. Like, what is he? Is he 30 yet? I don't know how old he is.
Just like he only makes $900K and he was a waiver pickup at one point. He's not going to ask for a lot of money.
He might be looking for $2 million. He might be with his numbers. His agent will have this sheet, right? The spreadsheet and be like, look.
Yeah. Is $2 million a lot for your backup goaltender?
I don't think so. But it might be for the Ottawa Senators right now.
The
issue
we don't know,
is
Gustafsson.
Right?
Do you think Philip Gustafsson is going to be a backup goaltender?
Okay, so Craig is so good. He's just confirmed that he's 29 years old. So shout out to Craig. So at that age, which is really important to know this. I mean, at that age, you got to think that if you're Ottawa, you'd be reluctant to give him too much term, right?
Sure, absolutely.
And if you're Forsberg, you certainly want a little bit of job security. You're looking for term. So it depends what he's asking for. But if the ask is, maybe a 2-year deal at 1.5, I mean, I'm not the one paying him, but to me, that seems reasonable for a good backup, competent backup goaltender. But then you're right. What happens to Gustafsson? The goalie stuff, man, I never understand it because, are you willing to have a guy like Gus play in the American League and then maybe you lose him on waivers? Maybe you don't. Maybe he's your number one and, making $1 million or $900,000 in Belleville. I don't know.
Okay, but
I don't know the answer.
By the way, there's a quote from Pierre Dorian in Pierre Lebrun's Athletic article last week. Quote, Anton has been very good for us when he's been in the net, and we'll just see if anything comes in the next few months with him. So it looks like obviously they're going to entertain offers, but here's what I would do. I would go into camp next year with both of those guys signed, as in Forsberg and Gustafsson, see which one starts to play better and risk losing the other guy. You already picked up Forsberg off waivers to begin with. You're willing to risk losing him because he wasn't part of your plan 2 years ago. He was a stopgap. I think that do you think Philip Gustafsson is the future number one in Ottawa? That's the question. And I'm not sure he is.
No, I don't. I honestly don't. And I mean, with the way the only issue with Matt Murray is the health thing. Now, granted, he's just had a baby, so I'm not going to go there. We all know how difficult that is. But the injuries, the prior injuries, is always going to be a concern. Is him being healthy, especially if he's your number one guy, and that matters because if you view him as your number one guy, then there's your answer. And then maybe you just sign Forsberg and you have the option going into camp next year. But that's the easy thing to say, right? We don't know the internal budgets of the team and what they're willing to move on. So when it comes to the goalie stuff, Wally, I'm not going to pretend like I know what I'm talking about. All I know is that I like Forsberg's play, and I'd be scared to lose him because we all know goalies develop much later than players do.
Yes. And
he's right at that age where goalies start to figure it out a little bit. Usually it's around 28, I want to say, but he's right. He's hovering there at 29. He might be a big loss if you move him, and then all of a sudden you're stuck with Gustafsson, who might struggle mightily next season. We don't know.
It'll be interesting to watch it play out. I get fears, but there are issues. Like you look at, they signed Mike Condon, they signed Andrew Hammond to these
I
big
know.
backup deals.
I know.
Both of them
I
end
know.
up with injuries. It didn't pan out very well, right? And so
we should get Zach Burke on the show and talk to him, see what he thinks.
I'll let you know when they agree to that. Last question, because you brought him up quickly, and then we'll move on to our Cheryl Pounder interview. That is Nick Paul. So
yeah,
are you pending UFA? This is of all the question marks, and all due respect to Anton Forsberg, this to me is the interesting one, because Nick Paul seems to, as we all say, can do it all. He has the utmost respect from the organization. He's probably not going to ask a lot, but he's going to ask for term more than I would think anything. He wants to stay here. You're right. I don't know where he fits in the lineup. So today he could be a second line center, and tomorrow he could be the fourth line winger. How do you see this? Is Nick Paul going to be here after the trade deadline, Marc Methot? Mathstradamus?
Yeah, I would like to see the team extend him. A really good, I'm reluctant to call him a role player, because he can play on your second line if you need him to. I like him as a third line guy. With Nick Paul, it's interesting because I'm a huge fan of his. I wish he was a little more physical. Now I know that's a bit of a mindset, and I'm not saying he needs to fight all the time or anything like that. I certainly never did, but I played very physical, and I tried to bully guys when I had to, because that was a strength of mine, right? I wish he did more of that. I think physically he could be more of a force. He's such a physical freak out there. He moves pretty well for his size. He could really impose his will on players. I'd like to see him do more of that, but that's besides the point. That's just sort of my assessment on his play right now. But if I'm Ottawa, Wally, what are you looking at as far as term goes? Like maybe a 3 or 4 year deal at just under $3 million. Would he sign that? Like, I don't know. I don't know what he's looking for. I honestly don't, but I know, and I've said this before, you move a guy like Nick Paul, you're going to be looking for a guy like Nick Paul down the road. Like that's a role player and those guys, Wally, those guys are always the guys that just seem to step it up in the postseason. Those big players that can actually play always seem to be very clutch in the postseason. It's just the way it is. It's always like that. It's always, and a lot of your top end, high end skilled guys oftentimes will struggle here and there because there's a lot of attention towards those guys in particular. You know, they're going to be facing a lot of the top pairing guys, a lot of the shutdown players on other teams, whereas your depth guys like Nick Paul that have that sneaky clutch factor to them can really step up their play. So I'd hate to see a team lose like a player like Nick Paul, just because I know how effective they could be. We saw it at the World Championships, prime example, where they just elevate their play when it matters.
How many times have you seen the playoffs and the broadcasters all talk and rave about third line guys who get all the attention come playoff time? Zach Smith and Pajot, all these guys that they all season long they just waddle through, and then boom, once the playoffs start, you see these guys. Look at the Bruins was a perfect example.
Exactly. And you're right. And I shouldn't put so much emphasis on the size. I only said that because he is a huge man.
Yeah.
But as you said, like look at Pajot. Those are guys that just seem to play well under pressure. We know Nick Paul can do that. We've seen him. Same with Connor Brown. That's another guy like that. They just elevate their play when it matters most. So I really can't stress that enough. And I don't want to keep, I said this earlier, I'm just going to say the same thing now with this rant I'm on. Just get it done. Get it done. I mean, you want to build a competitive team here. You need these glue guys, these chemistry guys in your team that also happen to be very good hockey players. Like and again, I know I'm not on the business side of it, but just collecting all these picks, I understand it's important for building a team moving forward, but you've got a lot of these young players in place now. You've got all your pieces in place. You've got more pieces coming in, more young guys. Pinto's going to be coming back. Of course, Sanderson's going to be coming in. Clement's going to be coming in. You've got a lot of really good young players. You've got that Ridley guy coming in who's really good. How do you say it? Is it Greg? Ridley Greg. Yeah. Okay. I've been watching him. He looks fantastic too. I've been watching highlights of him. So there's a lot of really good pieces. You don't have to worry about hoarding a ton of picks now. Nick Paul's a crucial guy on this team that they need to get done.
By the way, Colin White's set to make his season debut Saturday against Montreal. So good to see him back. It looks like he's going to possibly center the fourth line. Also just returning, and I know I said we were going to move on, is Thomas Chabot made his return.
Craig's rattled right now.
So he plays his 300th game. scores 2 goals. I just want you as a defenseman quickly to tell me so when he got hit by Tom Wilson and was out for 4 games, exactly what happened? Like, is he just a bruised chest, or is it worse than that? For him to miss 4 games seems like a long time.
Yeah, but they called it a lower body injury, I think, right? Was that ruled a lower body? Am I wrong? I'm pretty sure. Anyway, my point is, it could be anything. He could have fallen awkward. Yeah. It could have knocked the wind out of him, and then maybe bruised a rib or something, or like, it could be anything. But the point is, and DJ touched on that on the game day against Minnesota in the morning after the morning skate. He was saying how, like, people don't understand how much Thomas Chabot has been playing through. Like, he's a tough bastard. Like, he's been playing through a ton of stuff. And that's what a high praise from your coach when he's telling you that, he's telling the public that you're playing through tons of injuries, which coaches rarely ever do. So Chabot is obviously a warrior. He plays so many minutes. You got to imagine the bumps and bruises he's playing through at that pace with that much ice time. So, probably needed a reset. I'm sure that they were thinking, you know what, we desperately need this guy in our lineup, but it probably won't hurt him to be out for a couple games just to reset, get a little healthier, then come back. I'm sure he had other lingering things too. So I'm not going to deep dive into that because I can only assume what happened. But, and you mentioned the Tom Wilson hit. I mean, that's the thing where, you've got some more physical guys in your lineup. Maybe it doesn't happen, but that's, a tinfoil hat moment. So I'm not going to get into that. But those are the players you need to protect. And I hate seeing a star player like Chabot get hurt.
The Minnesota game, by the way, the first time in franchise history that Chabot, Stützle, and Tkachuk all scored. Those are the headlines, and I'm into page 3, Craig. They're brought to you by BEI, Bonnechere Excavating Inc. Bonnechere Excavating specializes in grading, drainage projects, also equipment rentals, aggregate, and topsoil sales. Also, if you're planning to have your driveway redone, or I guess laneway, depending on who you say, if you're having it done this year, give them a call. Visit BonnechereExcavating.com. Coming up after the break, brought to you by Whitewater, is the chat with Cheryl Pounder. It's fantastic. We dive into more Artem Zub stuff, a lot more D, and of course, we're going to talk about the women's game at the Olympics. Don't go anywhere. You're watching the Wally Methot Show. Please be joined now in our Whitewater chat is 2-time Olympic gold medalist and the voice of everything it seems to be on TSN hockey these days, Cheryl Pounder. Welcome to the show. Again.
Hi, guys. How's it going?
Well, Matt is great because he's got tan lines and everything.
I was kind of hoping we would see the Matt. I was kind of hoping, you'd bear all.
It wasn't a nudist resort, but so I do have slight tan lines in that area, but otherwise really good tan. I didn't burn once. I was laying 60 on all week, and it worked out in my favor.
That's awesome. I'm comfy too, so we're all good here. We're all good.
Well, we'll switch from
no tan lines though.
The sand to the ice, because I want to talk about women's hockey, which is the most viewed sport there was at the Olympics. Over 2.8 million viewers from Canada tuned in to watch the women's gold medal game. It's very near and dear to your heart, obviously. It goes back 20 years this week. You won the gold medal in Salt Lake City. I don't want to age you. I know that's not, but it certainly, it was a huge moment.
What are you talking about?
And I'm still older.
I look
so
the
it's
same.
Okay. Exactly. Well, let's go to Canada winning this gold medal and what it means. We can talk about Marie-Philippe Poulin in a bit, but on a whole, without the men anywhere near a medal, this became a huge thing for Canada to watch. And I'm going to assume just on that alone, the exposure it gave to women's hockey is almost priceless.
It really is. And I'm glad you mentioned the 20 years ago picture because I was 15 when we won. It's incredible though to watch these women and the visibility, and it's always interesting because every 4 years, right, it's every 4 years there's all of these eyeballs on the women's game and everyone's talking about the speed and the skill, and I think a lot of people aren't aware of the adversity they've been through over the last 3 years, in particular with their league being shut down back in 2019, and then of course through the pandemic, different shutdowns and cancellations through the World Championship, and what these women have actually gone through to stay on the ice. And they're actually talking about their fitness, how it increased during this time, because as individuals and within the program, they took it upon themselves to find ways to grow, whether it be from their mental aspect of their game, but also from the physical conditioning. And so for them to actually get there And after bubbling, living in hotel rooms the last month, not playing any games, getting on that plane, not sure of whether they were going to test on the other side of it and how it would all look, and finding a way to put the best product I've ever seen on the ice together in Beijing throughout all of this. It was absolutely incredible. I did well up, I'm not going to lie, when they won. I was supposed to be impartial, but it was more about that energy that's jumping through the TV, and a big reminder of when I first started in my first Olympic Winter Games. But this team honestly takes the cake, and I really believe they're the greatest team of all time. And I say that very openly, because played for a number of great teams with phenomenal athletes, but this team, and the lightness and the creativity they played with, I think it was pretty evident in their ozone time and the way they put the puck in the net.
CP, I just wanted to interject just once there with regards, like, I'm assuming, you know, obviously a bunch of the girls still on the team.
Yeah.
Did anybody have any like funny quirks with regards to the experience heading over there, or any of the weird sort of, I guess, protocols that they had to go through? Like, were there any interesting tidbits there?
Well, it's interesting. I haven't spoken to them since they've been back, but one of the fun things, well, not fun at the time, wearing those masks during that ROC game, when they had to go out there, and they talked afterwards about, you know what, again, you know, throw another thing at us, why don't you? Right. And that's kind of the approach they took. It was like, yeah, all right, so now we're wearing masks, like, and you know, those masks, I mean, I wear one to get my kids skate sharpened today, and I was bitching about it, right? And I did it, but I mean, because of the way you breathe, and I'm thinking, you know, these athletes are breathing heavily, and they just did it. And I think beyond, you know, getting there and different moments about having to sit apart in a cafeteria. So, you know, in the past, when you get to the cafeteria, you get to the Olympic Village, it's like a mini world that is all under one umbrella, and you have that opportunity to kind of converse with other teams. Not every team, but you know, and find ways to interact. And it was funny to watch them having plexiglass between them and the way they would sit. But you know, the way they still came out, it was almost like they created their own family there, because obviously their family wasn't there. And I think that's one of the great takeaways of this, is that they were a real team that expressed that throughout it all. But certainly the masks during that one particular game, the whole game, is something that they talked about.
Was doing that gold medal game for you as the analyst one of the toughest things you've done? Only because here you are, you've played in it. This is a gold medal, like it's USA, Canada. I can't imagine the range of emotion. Did you find it hard to separate from the player to just the impartial analyst? Or did you
I'm glad
care?
I've been in it for a little bit longer than just walking off of, you know, out of the Team Canada jersey and into the booth. I think I've had a little bit of time to process and been in the booth before. Certainly, I mean, my emotions, I had my adrenaline going. You know, you can feel it's Olympic gold medal final. I mean, we had plexiglass between Muddy and I nearly knocked it over about 10 times with my elbows. I was moving with the game. I was like, you know, I was right into it. And I think Ryan was like, pounder, like, okay, settle down. But, you know, I think you really just want to do the game justice. And both teams are unbelievable. The athletes and the work that they put into it. They're the two superpowers in hockey and women's hockey. And they were showcasing their talents and skill on the ice. So my job was to analyze it to the best of my ability, and do it for both teams. You know, at times I felt that the Canadians were on their heels and the Americans were pressing. At times I thought the bench management on the US wasn't great. And so on the other side of things, when Canada was being offensive and playing with creativity versus a couple moments where they might have hesitated. So I feel like it's just, you know, you have to make sure that you're present, if that makes sense, so that you're doing the best job that you can, because really it's about, you know, being real and authentic for both sides.
So did you get any nasty tweets or anything from me perhaps being accused of being partial to one side, or?
Oh, I got a couple just saying, you know, why were you endorsing the Americans at different times, which is interesting. And I was like, well, I just don't understand why he's not playing these players. Like, he's been playing 6 players all game. You want me to not talk? But yeah, so you know, there's always going to be a little bit of that. But on the other side of it, you know, because I played for Canada, I think you have to also be mindful of, not getting too emotionally attached. So just taking a breath and reminding myself of that prior to, and just enjoying it and Meth, like being in the broadcast booth, you're present, you're enjoying it, you're passionate about it, and it's the game of hockey. So that's what you're talking about. You're talking about what you see, which is a little bit different off of the television screen as opposed to being there.
Yeah.
But again, I was very grateful for the opportunity to be able to be in the booth. But certainly the emotions came back when they were all getting their gold medals. And I'm not going to lie, that inner little girl with the dream choked up on me as I thought about my own daughters watching the game and staying up way too late.
Good for you.
Because most of the US Canadian players know each other pretty well. They face each other enough, but they also go to some of the same schools. They're around each other. Is there that much animosity, or is it played up just to build a little bit of intrigue going into the final?
How should I answer this? When we played back when I was playing, and I do say back, I remember you never knew how your coaches felt about it. So you'd you'd see them, some of them played with some of the athletes on our team because I stayed in Canada. But and I remember getting into the elevator and being like, can I say hi? Like, am I allowed to say hi? Coach is right there. Am I allowed to say hi? So I feel like there's always been a rivalry when you step on the ice. And you're playing against your biggest competitor. It wouldn't matter if it was your sister, right? Or your brother or whatever, you try and take them down. And I feel like it's the same sense of rivalry, but I do believe there's a very healthy respect for the work that's been put in to get to that level. And also, they have a great feat ahead of them in terms of both teams and trying to grow the game. So I think they're connected that way. But again, I think anytime they step on the ice, that rivalry is very real and it's heated. When you see Poulin and Decker get to a face-off circle, that both of these are leaders on their teams and they just want to win for their country. So, but you walk away from the ice and you see Hilary Knight and Poulin, embracing over the last few years in the journey to get there, because you've been on both sides and you know what it feels like, but sure feels good to win.
Yeah. And CP, you talked about that journey and earlier when you were discussing, or rather telling us about how there was, over those 3 years, just difficult even to get ice time and work out and train. How do they manage that? Like who's paying for the ice time and who's paying for the training? Like those are stuff that I always wonder about, especially when you're not doing anything.
Well, I think Hockey Canada and Gina Kingsbury, who's sort of at the helm of Hockey Canada for the women's program right now, has really done a fantastic job of trying to stay connected with the group. Yeah. So whether it's small groups training together throughout this time, and then of course the PWHPA has kept them on the ice during Dream Gap tours, but again, not a ton of games to be able to play, getting ready for that Olympic moment. But they did centralize. Again, centralization, just for some of the viewers or listeners, is more of a process where you come together, you train full time as you vie for a spot on the team. So there were 29 athletes that moved to Calgary to train full time from August on, so that they had that opportunity to get together as well. And that's normal in an Olympic year. Yeah. But because the World Championships were in August, it just changed everything. And so the ability, and I know everyone hates the word pivot in this time because let's face it, we've been asked to do it too much. But that's exactly what they had to do and adapt. So it was constantly changing. I mean, listen, guys, their last rivalry series games against the US got canceled because of COVID. And then the next thing you know, they were into January and they had to cancel all of their games. So none of this was on the slate. None of this was on the docket, but they just had to find ways to push through. And that's essentially what they've done over the last 3 years. But yeah, the separate group, the training in different cities certainly kept them on the ice. And Gina was really pivotal in that.
I just want to come back to the rivalry for a sec, because it always leads back to me, Haley Wickenheiser's post game from the gold medal game, as about stepping on the flag. They were stepping on our flag in there. Do you want us to sign it? All that. Any part of can you take me through this incident? Because there are debates whether or not it's real, but what was being said in the locker room prior to the game?
Oh boy, do you have the opportunity to beep out anything that I say here?
Yes, we'll let Craig do that.
Are you? Yeah, Pounder potty mouth is going to come out. No, when we were told that, the Americans had our flag on the floor, we had felt that it was real. And in fact, it was not. So if you know Cami Granado and the respect that she has as the leader of that team, and when she said afterwards it did not happen, I 100% believe that it did not happen. But at the time, let's go back to at the time, and you're in a room, you haven't beaten the Americans in 8 straight games leading into the Olympics. You're trying to grab anything you can and use it, in a positive manner for yourself. And we held on to that, and it was kind of like, no one puts our on the floor. And we went out there really heated and animated, of course. And Haley, if anyone knows Haley personally, you will know that she is one intense and competitive individual, a reason why she was the best in the world. And she just grabbed on Sherry. I'll never forget it. She went on like, Dawn, I want the mic. And she often says today, it's not her greatest moment, because she knows it did not happen now either. But at the time, it was just one of those moments where your emotion gets the better of you, and celebrating an Olympic gold medal, that coming off of a loss in '98. I think the emotion was incredibly high. But you use all of that stuff. The Lucky Looney was at center ice. Like I
love it. I love it. Anything for motivation.
Yeah. And again, all the respect to the Americans, like they did not do it, but I remember the Lucky Looney guys, like the Lucky Looney. I will never forget finding out it was there. And we scored 5 unanswered goals to make it to the Olympic final in 2002, because we were losing to Finland in the semifinal. And after the final game in 2002, we knew it was there. And I remember coming back on the ice, literally, and like staring at it, and I'm making snow angels over it. Okay. I'm in my late 20s. I'm making snow angels over this thing. Like I'm kissing it. I got married, and I put a Lucky Looney inside a cookie for every guest that came to my wedding. Okay. So let's just say I was a little charged up. And so I'm making snow angels over it. Yes, I had a beer in my hand. We all do. And I remember there was a phone call from the press box down to the ice. And we were like, who is it? Like, whatever, we're staying here. And it was Wayne Gretzky. And he had called down to the ice because he's like, get the girls away from center ice. And we're like, what are you talking about? We're staying here. We're in our moment. He's like, no, if they find out it's there, they'll take it out. We need it. Like the next day. So again, it became this whole, vibrancy around the Lucky Looney. And irony, in 2006, our equipment manager brought a Lucky Looney and put it under our post, because there was no way the Italians were going to allow a Looney to be in the ice. So he got strategic, and he put one under our post. So anyway.
Each game? How do you
I'll take a breath now. Yeah.
No, I love it. I've never heard this. I don't think I've ever heard this story.
This is news to me as well. That's awesome.
Yeah, it was fantastic. And I mean, listen, if I'm wrong, it's because it's all a blur right now, but it went something like that. Okay. It was something along those lines, and it was just rallying around positivity. And I think that's what the Olympics do beyond the sport. It's just the hope and inspiration that comes out of it. It's beyond the wins and all of that stuff. It's the stories that we gravitate to, and it's those kind of stories that now we laugh and we're connected by. And when the pictures went out from 20 years ago, and we're hugging and we're crying, and I cried for about 2 weeks, I kid you not. Those are the memories that come back, is just the ones that connected you in those moments, and that those were certainly connectors.
You've seen it all pretty much. So there's always a debate over who the best player is of all time and all that. And we've now seen Marie-Philippe Poulin score 4 goals in 4 straight gold medal games. Is she the best player? And it's tough to compare, because the game obviously changes from back in 2000 and earlier and all that stuff. But where do you put her?
Don't deflect either, CP. Okay. They're not all good. We want one answer.
So am I getting more beer out of this or what? No, I'm
yes.
Which, depends by the way, I drank them all. They were lovely.
Good.
She is the best. Poulin there's something different about Poulin, and don't get me wrong. I mean, when you talk about Haley Wickenheiser, I played with her. So for me to be able to say this out loud, it takes a lot. And Poulin, though, when you talk about her ability to deliver, and Wick also delivered in these moments. So this is what makes it difficult. But when you look at Poulin coming in at the, I forget what age she was in 2010. I think she was 19, but she came in 2010 and she had those 2 Olympic gold medal goals. And then in 2014, of course, she scores the tying and then the overtime goal. What people don't realize that in 2018, she had the game winner up until 6.5 minutes remaining in the game. Then, of course, she comes into the World Championship. Canada hasn't won in a decade, and she gets the overtime winner to get that gold back in August. And then she gets to these Olympics, and she gets 2 goals and an assist in a 3-2 win over the Americans. Her timing and her maturity in those moments is unbelievable.
Clutch.
And when you talk about the game and how it's evolved, the sort of my clincher on all of this is that she comes in as a young player in 2010, and the game has grown incredibly since then. So what would that 2010 team beat our 2002 team by, right? That's what I mean. It's natural evolution of the game. Yet she has evolved and is now 30 and is still at the very, very top. So as it's moved the needle, so is she. And she's complete. So we talk about her goal scoring and we talk about that uncanny ability to put it in when it matters. But what about like her compete, her ability to play a 200-foot game, which you don't always see from stars, right? It's not just a north-south goal scoring game. Like, she is on the PK. She, much to my chagrin, I might add, she is, on the wall. She's fighting. Like I always used to say, can we get her a winger to get to the puck first, please? Right? So that she can actually stay and hang out in the high slot. But it wouldn't matter who you put her with, because she's going to be the first to it, because she just wants to be there. And so it's just, she led in pass distribution. And I'm not a huge analytics person, but I mean, she led in pass distribution this tournament. So the evolution of her game, and the layers to her game beyond her goal scoring, she's the best. So there you go.
There it is. That was good.
I appreciate that, because back in no one's ever going to remember this, but back in 2009, the Canadian team was in Rockland, Ontario, not far from outside Ottawa. And I was sent there to do a story on the Wayne Gretzky of women's hockey. When I think back now to that title, I'm like, I apologize to everybody for having to, but we did that back then. We're always like, let's compare the best female and say what male it is. Anyway, I had to do a story on Marie-Philippe Poulin, who I didn't know at the time, but I researched going in. And so I'm talking to Melanie Davidson, who was the head coach at the time. But you know what Melanie's like? She doesn't like to give out a lot of kudos, because she likes to keep you fairly grounded. So when I'm talking to her, she's like, she's not that good. Like, just, and I chuckle to this day, where she's like trying to downplay how good Marie-Philippe Poulin is. And that was the year before she goes in to score the gold medal game in Vancouver.
Yeah, she's incredible. And it's funny that you say Melody, did that. That was the year after I got cut. Thanks for the reminder. But I remember when Poulin started as well. And the thing with Poulin is you could walk through a number of shifts in a game, or even some games where you don't actually notice her. And even at the beginning of this tournament, people were like, and that's the eye from sitting on the, across the TV. But if you watch the details of her game, you would know that she's been very, very effective, but she really doesn't care. She's a leader through and through. Like, she just wants to get the job done. And then she quietly, you look at like her stat sheet, and quietly you're like, what? Like, she's got 12 points right now. Like, right. And then all of a sudden, boom, they play the Americans. And so it's incredible that she has this quiet presence about her, but yet, like, it's not always the flash. It's the flash in the big moment, because she scores the goal, but it's the subtle things she does in a game. And from playing, it's those players that do the subtle things that make an incredible difference in the game. And it's often the difference between winning and losing. And she's just got it.
She's consistent too, which is, I guess, probably the biggest thing. And I've talked to Meth about this. The players who survive and star and excel are always the ones that consistently do it on a nightly basis. Like Sidney Crosby, right? It's not always flashy, but he always seems to have 3 points by the end of how everything goes.
Yeah. And what's incredible, if we were to put a list up of Poulin's injuries over the years, you wouldn't even know where to start, from ruptured spleen to shoulder to ankle to, I can't even keep up with the number of injuries she has had. Her knee, World Championship 2019, she didn't play because she was hurt in the first game, again, re-injured. So again, you're talking about a woman who has been has sustained some pretty significant injuries over the course of her career, and she is still doing what she is doing. So again, I think, it's absolutely incredible. And I think the bond that this particular group has, just even the lightness to them, I think it was pretty evident beyond wearing their heart on their sleeve. I think they wore their heart for each other. And I think that was really binding moment for them with everything they've been through.
Last question on MPP, and that is, should she, there's rumors about playing in the East Coast League and all that. Should she play with men, for lack of a better term?
It's interesting, and I would never shake my head one way or another at her, because it would be her decision, right? Like that, it's her decision. But she did say no. My understanding is to this ECHL contract, which I was kind of, somewhat doing this in my own special way. I was doing it, but again, I wouldn't frown upon her doing it, because at this point in time, she has nowhere to play, essentially, outside of some tours that are happening, which are being put together to encourage visibility and the greater growth of the game. But one of the things that I would have to think, and again, I don't know, because I've not spoken to her in her reasoning behind this, and I said this the other day, is that if Poulin goes and plays in the ECHL, which would be her prerogative, and everyone would support her because she's a great human being, and a great player. That would help Poulin, right? Like that would get her on the ice and whatever. But Poulin thinks about everyone and the fight that they've been in over the last, I don't know how many years, for something greater than herself. And so for me, in some ways, from just my own perspective, again, not having spoken to her about it, I think that, part of this decision is also the greater visibility of the group, not just Poulin. And again, that comes back to just, speaks volumes again. And not that I wouldn't speak volume if she took it. I just think she wants something bigger than her for the game. And I think she thinks she needs to stay connected with this group to be able to do it.
And that's an easy way to transition into what I want to talk about next. And that is growing the game, the women's game in Canada. Obviously, there is the Sonnet Tour. It's making a stop this weekend in Ottawa, actually, at the Steve Eisman Arena in Nepean. You can get tickets online. What do we need to do here? And I'll stop it. Obviously, the easy part is, well, if you gave it a whole bunch of money, it would obviously succeed. But in order to get that, you need TV ratings, you need TV broadcasters to jump in. And that doesn't mean they're going to be there. It's tough to sell the CHL in Canada. It's tough to sell the AHL in Canada. It's tough to sell anything outside of the National Hockey League. So everybody wants to just jump on and say, well, just pour money into it. But that doesn't make it a business decision for broadcasters or for anybody else getting involved. So how do you grow this sport to a professional women's league? And is there enough support for it? I know that's a broad question, and it would take us 3 days to answer.
It would, and I don't have the answers. I wish I did. But I think you said it. It's tough markets for CHL, but you tried, right? They're trying. Yep. And so where is that for the women's game? And you're coming off of, I said this 4 years ago, the time is now. And I got a little, not emotional the other day, but I said, I'm kind of sick of talking about where we're at, because we've been talking about where we're at for years. And if I actually look at it, and I think it's very sad in multiple ways, if I look back, if I reflect at when I played my club hockey, where I played, which is preparation and journey to getting to the national team. And also it was a great league. I don't think we're that much further ahead. And that's very sad to me, that we're not much further ahead than, if we're any further ahead than where I was with the parity, like in just that level, a decade ago. And yet these women have committed themselves to it differently. The showcasing, the talent is different. And I think there's a real appetite for it if you watch the Olympic Winter Games. And so I think really, the first thing you can do is buy a ticket this weekend, right? Go watch some of these athletes play and see them and be visible. But no question, I think someone's got to try, and it's got to be on the appropriate platform. You have to give it an opportunity to succeed, and with the resources and the marketing and the platform to be able to showcase it, to get enough eyeballs on it, and give it a real go. And that hasn't happened. And so I feel like it's a shame that these women who have just represented their countries have nowhere to play full time. And so what do they do now? And that is the big question. So I think, whether it's corporate, NHL, there's various things and ways we could look at. But what I do know is that I coach young girls. and I coach my daughters. And I certainly know that they want to watch. I certainly know that they stayed up to watch those games. I know that they turn on the television when the PWHPA games are on, or they buy tickets if they don't have games to go down and watch when they can. Of course, with COVID, it's different. But so there needs to be something so that they can see what's available down the road. And for me, there needs to be something. And these women have earned it, but we've been talking about it for way too long. And so, yeah, someone is going to have to invest in it, and look at involvement within the community, and utilize these women for the great mentors that they are as well, to make them more visible, right?
Yep.
You know, put a face to the name of some of these athletes.
I think it was 2009, the All-Star game in Ottawa. There was a few national team members. Tessa Bonhomme was one of them. My son still has a signed Tessa Bonhomme photo in his room and knows her and was following her throughout that point because he's like, I've met her. So I totally agree. Like, just getting out, like, people even like to see Meth, like, just getting out to see these people, right? Like, so if you sign something, people are all in.
Well, my kids used to go to the games with their teams, and they would line up. All of the women would come out afterwards and do autograph sessions post game, just to grow the base. Every single one of them. You know, it wasn't like 2 or 3 of them. They were so accessible because they knew they had to be. Not that, you know, they always wanted to, but they knew they had to be for the next generation. And that doesn't even need to be young girls. It can be young boys.
Mm-hmm.
You know, one of the greatest things that happened to me the other day, little Coach Cal, who was doing his little speech, sent me a note and said, oh, I want to, you know, I'm going to bring it like Cheryl Pounder in the booth. And I was like, oh my gosh, like, it's a little boy talking about a young woman, not a young woman, but you know what I'm saying. But again, it was not about that. It was more about the idea that there's that's a young boy saying, oh, look at her. And so I feel like there's the visibility around that is what is key. And, you know, Becky Keller, one of my best friends, in 2010, she moved her boys to Calgary to train full time to compete for the women's team in Vancouver, and she did. And one of the first things one of the kids, when she came back, asked one of her boys, "Who's your favorite hockey player?" And it was a woman. And so just because he'd seen it, he'd been around it, and so let it be their choice, right? I always say to my girls, you know, if you know, Brady Tkachuk is your favorite player, then Brady Tkachuk is your favorite player. But if it's Laura Stacey, who wears 7 for Canada, then it's Laura Stacey. You choose, bud, you know? And so we got to kind of just promote it to a level where people want to see it. And then, hey, if you don't want to watch, turn off the television, right? But let's give them an opportunity to be successful.
Yeah, it shouldn't be every 4 years either, right? That becomes the key. It just fades away.
That's the biggest thing, right? It's like, it's not enough.
No.
And I love that you mentioned like marketing individuals, like not just the teams, but like throw the individuals out there, get your stars out there. Like that's the biggest thing, because I can speak on that with a lot of friends of mine. They used to follow us when I played with the Sens because they knew me there, right? Or other fans or whatever, because you start to kind of follow individuals, right? It gets bigger than the team sometimes in some weird way, where you're more interested in Poulet or some individual that's a superstar. So I'm with you on that. I think marketing is the biggest thing that needs to change.
It is.
You need to get your faces out there.
Yeah. And it's funny, right after, before the last Clarkson Cup. So that would be that's the big cup for what the CWHL was before it ceased operation in 2019. I actually went to the game with my team, and we were down at Coca-Cola Coliseum, and it was pretty much sold out there. And I looked down, and I don't know how many kids had bought a jersey. And it was the first time I was like, they've identified, right? They've actually identified. They bought the jersey, and then it went poof. And so you step back, and yes, they've got the PHF that's happening as well. And there's not a disrespect to any of, I'm a fan of the game. It's not a disrespect at all, but we have arguably, all of your national team athletes that aren't playing somewhere. So we've got to get young girls, boys, whoever it may be, wanting to buy the jersey. And the only way is if they know who that individual is who puts that jersey on. And so that rings true in sport, right? It rings true in sport, because my daughter begged Erin Ambrose for her jersey, like begged, again, it's just because that was her player and still is.
That's that hockey mentality though. Nobody shine up your teammates, nobody stand out a little, but now you're seeing it with Austin Matthews. Like there's a few guys, PK Subban was another, just guys who wanted to be
changing
out in front. I just, you need more of that from all over. Like you need Brady Tkachuk to actually want to step away from the team and be that center point and focal figure. That's how you draw people in.
And it's hard because it adds pressure to some of those individual athletes, which
Correct.
I know that, Poulin and, she's always been a humble athlete that doesn't necessarily love the spotlight, or so it would seem. She'd rather deflect to her team. But what I can guarantee you is that each one of those athletes is willing to do what it takes, what's necessary to create as much buzz and energy around the game. And if that means staying afterwards to sign autographs or to go out in the community and I don't know, be available for an event within their community, wherever their team is. And that's some of the reward, not necessarily when you're looking at monetary investment and what you're getting back, but what are you getting back within a community that has a women's team and the role models that are on that team that can go out in your community. Because we all know that when everyone sees Brady Tkachuk throwing his stick over the boards to that little kid or signing it, what it does, it brings in community and it makes community want to come and support. And so I feel like it's beyond the game. So we can start talking about it's not going to make the money and it's not going to do this. Well, certainly we're going to start somewhere. But when you build those ties within a community, you don't know what that opportunity presents. And I also know every time I walked into a Canada-US game, and we're not talking about a 10-person team league here. We're starting kind of with an original six idea, right? And so there's parity and it's great quality and it's great pace and it's not watered down. And when you have that opportunity, it's incredible. Because when I was at the All-Star break back in what year it was, pre-2002 in Toronto, we were sold out and it was Canada-US women. So, when I played my last game in 2007 in Winnipeg, there was no standing room left. So how do we recreate, and can we put them in smaller buildings perhaps to create buzz? I mean, Arizona's going to be doing it, right? So
it's too easy.
So it's I don't know. Obviously I'm passionate, guys, and I don't have the answer. But I feel like it's time, and I've been saying it's time for a very long time. And when it's most visible coming out of an Olympics,
it's time. They need to cash in, if you will, and just start to use that momentum. I think now is perfect timing just to get this going. So I do hope this somehow finds its way, that it has become a regular. You see it every week. You can watch all the women best players in the world at any time. Last topic I want to get in, and that is obviously your work on the Senators. So the two of you stay-at-home defensemen, weigh in on Artem Zub. Frank Saravelli has put it in his article that Artem Zub is possibly available. What he has told me is that Zub has been mentioned, that he is available if it's the right price. I don't know what that price would be. Would either one of you move Artem Zub right now?
Oh, I'm not. Go ahead, Matt. I'm going to see what your fresh vacation mind has to say on this one.
Well, I mean, Wayne Gretzky's been traded. I mean, it's not impossible. Do I think it's a good idea? No, obviously. And I mean, what are you like? You and I said this about Nick Paul. You trade a player away, and this is especially true with a player like Artem Zub. You trade him away. What now? You're looking for a player like Artem Zub for the next 2 seasons or whatever it may be. So you finally have a legitimate top 4 defenseman, stay-at-home defenseman on your team who's relatively young, and he's proven that he can play with anybody. Like, he's making Eric Brandstrom look good. So, I mean, and I'm not trying to shit on Eric Brandstrom. I'm just saying, I guess I am kind of, but
yeah, no,
you know, like for me, it's simple. I'm not going to go into some long rant. I think it's idiotic. When I saw the report, I just thought, Frank isn't obviously paying close attention to the team like we all are here. So maybe the name was floating around because, he's up at some point and
it's
he's
out
a younger
there.
player that be valuable, but that doesn't mean that the team wants to move him, and the team's not going to deny it because I'm sure they want to hear potential options, but I think it would be just stupid. That's my stance.
Yeah. And I'm going to agree with you. And I was doing the game the other day, and I had actually marked a little highlight pack on him because it was just the small little details of his game, of the ability to shut down the blue line, take away ice, neutral zone, a good active stick. And those little details, as you know, Meth, like they sometimes can get forgotten, and how damn important they are in protecting the middle of the ice, in particular your own zone in front of the net, and deflecting to perimeter and finding ways to play physical, even taking a hit. Like, he has the size. So to me, it doesn't make sense when he's been consistent. He has the ability to play with guys that can, jump into the rush more than he does. He can get back. Like, he's effective. We've seen him find shot lanes from the blue line, even though he's, not typically your guy that's going to create a ton of offense. But yeah, I think that, I'm still of the belief that those championship teams start at the house and at home. And I feel like you got to make sure you take care of that area. It's maybe that's just because I was the player I was, and I wasn't the one activating on the rush. The game has completely changed, but there's some areas of the game where you just have to be solid, strong. And you're not going to always have the numbers to back yourself up, but it's the details for me of his game that make him effective. And I wouldn't move him.
Okay, so here's the debate that
here we go. Okay.
No, this is good. You'll like this. So,
all right.
We in Ottawa, because never hear from Artem Zub, he has now got this legendary status. He's like a cult-like figure. So I feel like people put way too much emphasis perhaps on his game, or think more of it than it should be. If he's on a legit Stanley Cup contending team, is he a top 4 defenseman? Cheryl, I'll start with you.
Oh, I think he can play valuable shutdown minutes. I do. So I think he can play in 4, because I think if he has a solid partner, I think he can take away a lot of minutes. He can play a lot of minutes, and he can play tough, and he can play physical. And it's those details that I mentioned. Yeah. I mean, if he's in your third pairing, you're a Stanley Cup contending winning team, right? Yes. And that's what I would say. So he can play top 4 certainly on a very strong team, but if he's in your bottom 6, you are a Stanley Cup contender, because his ability to shut down. If he has a partner that has the same ability as him, you can play him against top guys, elite talent, and look for shutdown minutes.
Yeah, I totally agree with everything CP just said. His decision making is always like top notch, right? Like, you never really see him out of position. You never see him really ever make a play where you're like, what was he doing there? He's always making the right decisions. And then you conflate that with really good skating and the ability to make that good first pass as a stay-at-home D-man, which I think is why, so that's why he's such a legitimate. I don't like, on a really good team, maybe not your top 2, maybe not, but you could still probably put him there if you had a good offensive guy to complement. So I agree with CP. Top 4 on a good team, he'll fit right in.
Yeah. And I love what you said there too, because I love the fact that first pass sometimes gets unnoticed, because sometimes we see the really flash first pass on an exit, like but the simple freaking pass, man, like just draw in someone and make it quick, make it soon, step back to the middle of the ice to get yourself in a good position to defend. Yeah. And he does that, and his stick, the way he takes away ice on his gap, those are things that not a lot of, I emphasize them. I know that's because my eye naturally goes there, but those are certainly the things that I look for, and I see it with him.
Okay, so let's debate Erik Brannstrom then, since Meth brought him up. Is Erik Brannstrom on your team next season, Marc Methot?
No. I mean, between me, like, if you're someone mentioned a really interesting potential trade. I mean, I don't know if Tampa would ever do it, but you mentioned Erik Chernak, and would you trade him? Or would you trade Lassie Thompson or Erik Brannstrom for a Chernak, right? Like a good stay-at-home defenseman that can play physical, and he's a legitimate top 4. And my answer was yes, because you've got to understand that you've got Sanderson coming in, you've got Clevin coming in, you've got some depth guys. I'm reluctant to call them depth guys; they're going to be stars, and you still have JBD. So we've got pieces to move, and where does Brannstrom fit once Sanderson and Chabot are both on your team? Like, that's what I'm saying. And I know there's a love affair with Erik Brannstrom on Sens Twitter, and I'm sure on Reddit, those nerds are probably talking about him there too. That's fine. Great. But you need to be realistic when you're building a hockey team, and you might have a love affair for a certain player, but if he doesn't fit in the plans, like, is he better than Sanderson? Is he better than Chabot? No. So where does he fit? I don't see him fitting in the plans moving forward. I hope he has a great career. I don't see him on this team moving forward.
Yeah, I think I'm not as convinced as you are, Mark. But I would say that I agree with you, but I think they need another shutdown D. And so where does that push him? When you look at PP1, you've got Chabot, you've got Sanderson. So where Brandstrom's skill set is his ability to activate, be mobile on the blue line and activate through the middle of the ice. Yeah. So he's going to have a real good, his zone exit, like they're going to be good, and you're going to see him get hit back in the middle, and he's going to lead and be offensive. So if you need a shutdown guy, that's going to push him into your bottom six. Now, what is that? Well, right. What does that do now? Because now he's not going to be on PP1. So that's, that it's not going to be. So you're not using him for his skill set that he is. So I think it's going to be tough not to move him in this situation, but there are elements to his game that I do like when he is on his game. Like, I love the way he uses the net. I love the way he comes through the middle of the ice. But again, I feel they need a top 4D right now. I feel like they need a defensively oriented shutdown first pass, like a Zub, to be able to contend and play tough minutes against elite guys. And I think that's going to make it more difficult for him.
Yeah, I agree. And that's why, again, I wasn't as diplomatic about it. My takes can get a little warm sometimes.
That's good for you. Yes,
but you're right though. And I should mention, I agree with CP when, like, his ability to look up the ice when he does have control of the puck on neutral zone transitions, off really DVDs and stuff. Like, he's exceptional at making those up the middle plays. We've seen him do it like a ton now. Like, he's very good in the offensive zone on the blue line too. But for me, it's about numbers and depth. And that, like we just talked about, I think he's going to get squeezed out.
Yeah, because Chabot, if Sanderson's coming in, you're going to give him that opportunity to be the guy that everyone knows he can be at 100%. The NHL level. And so it's really a matter of that, how many of those skilled guys do you need on your blue line in particular. And that I still think they need that. They need a top, like they need another shutdown. Yeah, guy who can just protect the interior, make guys pay the price and not want to come through the middle. It's gonna be hard. It's got to be hard to get to the net, and I think they need another one.
This is fun, so I'm gonna keep going. Who is your number one center next season? Is it Josh Norris or Tim Stützle? Marc Methot.
Norris has such good chemistry with Batherson and Tkachuk that I think that's the safe decision to start. If you have Tim Stützle at the level that he's playing at now going into next season, then I think you need to get a legitimate, again, and I'm sure a lot of teams are doing this. Yeah, you need another top six forward, right? Yep. Otherwise, you're wasting him. So, but to me, realistically, if this is going to be a playoff team, Norris for now has to be your number one center because he's responsible two ways. He's very good in his own zone. And then Stützle can be like that padded extra point production guy, elite centerman on your second line with another good winger that can help you get more points. So you can make an argument against it for sure, but Norris is still your safe bet as a number one going into next season. We have a different conversation if it was the following one.
Yeah, we might think alike, and this is not, we're working off each other here, but I'm going to say, one of the things that the injuries, as much as crap as it is for the Senators, and the goaltending and everything that's happened and put them in a position, but it's given Stützle the opportunity to get to the middle.
Yeah.
Whereas otherwise, I don't think he would have been given the opportunity to play in the middle. And I think he's shown much differently since he's been in the middle for me. That the ability to go north-south, but also east-west for me, because that's opened his game up, the ability to create more, also just to see a little bit differently. So for me, as much as, you can say, defensively and physical maturation and in the face-off dive, well, throw it all out the window because you're building here. Yeah. But I think that's a big piece, is that he got to the middle. So I don't know if we'd be having this discussion if he hadn't been moved to the middle. Whereas now I feel like we can, but I'm with you. They need another top six forward to be able to complement and to be able to execute, because obviously what we're seeing now is Stützle's the one driving the offense right now, and it's very difficult. They need a top six.
Yep.
So Cheryl, is DJ Smith over coaching himself? A lot of people just said, put Tim Stützle in the middle at the start of the year and look what will happen. And he fought it. He's fought other moves around in top 6 spots or whatever. I'm just curious if you think he perhaps over coaches himself.
I don't think so. I think the problem is you're walking in, and Meth could probably talk more to this than I can, but you know, you got a 19-year-old coming in your dressing room, hasn't played center in a few years, and what he's gonna act as your second or third line center at the time. He's going to have to be in the face-off dot against what guys on the other teams consistently. So how is that going to be necessarily good for his game? And I can see, in some ways trying to support and protect your players, your young players, from putting them in that position in particular, down low in your own zone, as a supporting player, a second layer, that's tough. Yeah. So I think in some ways, DJ being, from my understanding, of the type of man he is just, trying to support the youth also and not crush confidence at a young age. But I think he was kind of put in a situation where, hey, why not? Right? Like, what the hell? Might as well give it a try now. Like, look what's happened here. So, I mean, I might be wrong, Mark, but that's sort of my, it's awfully tough when you've been gone a few years and you haven't played in the middle, and then to be thrown into that situation in the NHL when you're not physically mature, and have tough minutes when you're going, into the face-off circle against, it could be John Tavares every time you're matching up, or, it could be a camp, those kind of things.
I agree. I mean, I think you nailed it when you said that, at that age, like, you have to protect the player. I think DJ played it perfectly, and then waited for injuries to happen, which was inevitable. And that gave him the opportunity. First of all, it protects DJ and his decision-making to move into the middle. But I think in the best interest of the player, it's ideal as well, because he was getting eaten alive on faceoffs. Like, he was winning, like, he was like 2 for something insane, like 2 for 19 or something in one of his games. Like, so he obviously has a lot of room for improvement there. I don't know what his numbers are as of late. I'm not going to pretend like I know, but that's just proof that he wasn't necessarily prepared for it initially. And the defensive zone, assignments involved if you're a centerman is crazy. Like, at that age, it's a lot of responsibility. So that's the biggest thing for me. And I'm seeing him mature now. He's getting more comfortable, more confident, and the transition's been a lot smoother, as opposed to getting thrown into the fire right after training camp. That would not have been fair.
Yeah, no, and that's what I saw from it. So, I mean, you can't blame the coach for doing that, I don't think, but I just think he was put into a position where, so many injuries, so many things gone down. Why the hell not? Right. And I think he's shown different elements of his game, and that, is the circle and all those kind of things. But I feel like you can really see the future of Stützle in the middle with this move.
Fair enough. Cheryl, I don't want to keep you any longer, so you can get some much needed rest that you've earned over the last, it feels like 3 weeks here of covering the Olympics. So we appreciate your time. We will get you to the Whitewater Beer Santa soon with a delivery. So thank you very much.
Oh, no, that was great. I'm telling you, it came in perfect time too. Oh yeah. Which one did I like the best? I can't remember. The fig one I think it was the fig one. Anyway, they were all so different. They were great. So
they were very good. I appreciate it. Thank you, Cheryl. Take care.
Awesome. Thanks, guys.
All right, welcome back to the show, and a thank you to Cheryl Pounder. Welcome now into the show. As always, the guy that keeps us on track and is on page 4, Craig.
We're just ripping through these pages today. Killing it.
I'm gonna go double-sided and save it because I'm running out of ink. It's expensive. Anyway, Meth, I meant to put this in the first, but I skipped it till the end. Zdeno Chara is getting set on Saturday, I think it is, against San Jose to play his 1,652nd game, which is the most, will be the most by a defenseman in NHL history. He's 44 years old. He's averaging 18 and a half minutes. And for those who don't know, Ottawa won that trade. It was the biggest trade, arguably, when they traded Alexei Asher. The Islanders ended up getting Spezza, which was the second pick, Chara and Bill McCall. He played 299 games with Ottawa of those 1,651 games so far. You played 600 games. I'm just curious. Can you just sum up what it's like to play this kind of hockey? Like, you're not even 40 yet, and he is like playing National Hockey League minutes here at 44, soon to be 45 years old.
And the craziest thing is, like, I've always taken really good care of myself. Like, I've always been a hard worker. I love to train. I still train like an animal in the gym, but like genetically, like my knees, my shoulders, everything hurts all the time. Right. Whereas Chera's got Olympian parents. So you have to think that has some play into this. I mean, he's a freak athlete. Really, I can't stress enough how impressive just to play 1,000 games, let's just say, but to play 1,600 hockey games with the physicality that he's brought to the game is incredible. So I mean, hats off to Zdeno. He was my favorite player. Like, so when I was playing junior and even a little before junior hockey, especially once Chera got to Ottawa, that's when I really started paying attention. I just thought it was hilarious. You know, they would use him on the power play, and this big mutant defenseman who was actually pretty skilled too and crazy tough. They just plant him in front of the net on the power play, and he would stand there, and I would just howl in front of the TV watching that. I was always a huge fan of his because I thought he was such an impressive player to watch. So, I mean, I can keep pumping his tires, but really it speaks volumes of his dedication to the game, his discipline, his work ethic. Yeah, I mean, it's only something I could dream of. I mean, to play that much hockey, he's got 1,000 games almost on top of what I played. Like, just to put that into perspective, which
that's what I thought. That's what I thought Brent was going to ask you. Was like, could you imagine playing 1,000 more like after your career?
No chance. Insane. And it's not just the hockey. I know we're elongating our episode again. It's fine. Not just the on ice. Like, it's the grind, and you guys both know what that's like, traveling and like the late nights. Like it really drains you. Like, I'd go through but I was wiry, so I was always a high stress guy. But like, I would go for weeks. Like, my eyes would be twitching. I'd be stressed out. I'd get nasty headaches all the time. Late, inconsistent sleep schedules. And then you're getting beat up on the ice, and then you're eating like crap on the road. Like, it really takes a toll on you over time. Right now, imagine doing that for like 20 years. I can't, and being healthy most of the time. Well, insane.
And that's the other part, right? He's consistently got to be healthy. In order to play those kinds of games, you can't have major injuries very often.
Yeah, it's crazy. It needs more attention. Yeah, it's not getting enough attention. It's crazy. I can't get over that. Like, it's one thing to get 1,000 points. To me, it's a greater milestone to play 1,600 games. Anyway. Yeah, it's really cool.
Well, he was before my time and Meth's time there. Do you have any Zdeno Chara stories for us?
Oh, not really. Anytime I always think of Chara playing is the one time so we always talk about how heavy his shot was, and he was breaking sticks left and right. They couldn't find him a stick that was strong enough for him, but he broke Alfie's rib in front of the net it was a power play. It was a point shot. And I've never forgotten. I'm like, how hard do you have to shoot the puck to be breaking that guy's rib? So I always remember that.
Like, he's a physical freak. He's not like a huge, thick guy per se, but he's so naturally strong. And I do attribute that. I do firmly believe in good genetics. I know he has, like I said, Olympian parents, but like, I always remember being told that he was able to bang out like 20 plus pull-ups, during training camp fitness testing, which, again, I can't stress how difficult it is to do that at 6'9" with those long arms. Just think about that, right? Like, those are the things. And I remember them. We beat them in the playoffs, right? Years back, was it 2017? And I remember shaking his hand when we were, finishing up the series. And I told him right there, I'm like, Z, I've always been a huge fan of yours, thank you or whatever. And I don't even think he really understood what I said to him. So he was like, good round. And he just kept going, it's like, all right, see you later. Yeah. But I have a great deal. I probably admired him. He's on par with Ray Bourque as far as my two favorite players of all time. And I got the chance to play against him. So that was cool.
Boys, one thing I wanted to bring up before we kind of wrap up here, Ryan Dzingel, he was in the news again the other day, got traded and waived. And now he's in San Jose now. He's a guy we all know pretty well. And Bobby tweeted something that I think it makes sense to me. I just wanted to read it to you guys, figure out what you guys had. And he wrote, imagine having Dzingel on almost any team and rolling him out minimally. I just don't get him. Put him on your second line with a good center, and he gets you 15 to 25 for $1 million. Yeah. Is that kind of the player he is? Is he being misused by these teams that are just throwing him on the fourth line and kind of trying to turn him into a checker? Like, is he one of those guys that maybe should be playing a bigger role on a bigger line with better players?
I'll go first really quickly. I haven't watched Zinger play enough over the last year and a half to give a fair assessment. So it would be disingenuous for me to jump in and be like, yeah, like he'll get 30 goals. So I'm not sure, but I played with Zinger, great guy, takes very good care of himself off the ice. He's in great shape. So, I mean, I believe there's a role for him anywhere. Now it depends what that role looks like on any given team, but yeah, I'm sure if you play him with the right guys, but that could be said about a lot of players too. So I'm reluctant to go that far, but I do think that, he's definitely serviceable. You're definitely able to get at least 15 out of him a year. He's skilled enough to do it. I just think,
can you get it in the
give him an
postseason?
opportunity.
Can you get it in the postseason? That's the question.
Yeah, of course you can. I think you can. Yeah, sure. I think you can. If given the right role, with the right line mates, again, I think given the right role, I could probably get 20 goals potentially if I played with a really good player. But so I don't know how much value I give to that, but I think in his case, his skating, I haven't seen him lately, so I can't speak on that exactly. But my experience with Zinger, he was always very fast. Always had skill, just lacked sometimes a little bit of the creativity, maybe if you want to be critical, but really good depth piece to have on a team. Like there's no question there. I mean, there's a role for him. I'm just not quite sure what that looks like. It depends where he's playing.
He almost kind of feels like the reverse Zub, where like Zub, you put Zub with a guy to bring his play up. Dzingle's the guy that you put him with a Matt Duchene, for example, and it brings his play up. Like he can play with better players rather than drag up worse players, which is what happens to him, I think, on fourth line. Does that make sense?
Yep, totally.
Okay.
That's a good assessment.
Okay. Okay. Well, Ryan Dzingle's in San Jose. They're collecting a few old Sens pieces there. So I don't know. I kind of want to tune in and check in on all those.
See how they do.
See who's looking good down there.
Yeah. Wally?
By the way, I went to my first NHL game as a non-member of the media on Tuesday.
How was it?
Interesting. It was different. It was okay. I just didn't want to.
Well, was it different? It was different because you had to wear a mask the whole game? Was that fun?
No, Meth. When I ate my popcorn, I didn't have to wear it.
So what you do is you buy a large and you just slowly eat it throughout the entire game.
Anyway, it was, I was going to come over and see you. I was like, I didn't want to hang out with people. So for the most part, I just hung out with my kid, which was for like the 23 years I covered hockey, I didn't ever go to a game as a fan, except like 3 times. And I was able to take my kid like once. And so it was nice just to go back and sit.
That's cool. Good for you guys.
And watch him.
You did. I think you did that the right way. I did that in the fall. I went to like my first game and it's the same thing. Like you bring a kid with you or something, or else it's weird the entire time. Cause being there for like work reasons and then going back there, cause like your seat, it's like if you like work in TV or work in movies, it kind of ruins TVs and movies for you, right? Cause you know how the sausage gets made a little bit. So
Agreed.
Yeah, I hear you. Well, there you go. You made it back in there. So maybe let's get to a game. Hey, how about us?
3 of us. Yeah.
The 3 amigos.
Yeah, that's right.
The only way I would go is if I could drink a good, healthy amount of beer.
That was fun. That was nice.
Yeah. So anyway,
I'm assuming, Matt, that you could afford the Uber.
Oh yeah. I'm not worried about that. I just, I don't know if I could go watch a game and just sit there. Like, cause I get like sweaty palms and I get fidgety cause like I want to play and I'm very analytical and critical of the game when it's happening. So if I had something that could relax me, like an abundance of alcohol, I feel like I would enjoy it more.
I will get Sparty to come over.
I hate to derail the show, but we didn't talk about Mexico one time. If there's people coming in here wondering about this Mexico trip, we didn't talk about this once. Yeah.
Can we get whatever you guys want to talk about?
That's on page
6. You can see the wristband tan right here.
Yeah. Sorry. This is a marathon episode for people that want to come here, but I don't want them to miss it.
The flight sucked on the way down because you have to wear a face diaper for 5 hours. So, and they're very critical. Like, so they'll be like, and don't get me wrong, like this isn't me going on a mask rant because I wear it at the grocery store. I understand that it's important. I'm just saying when you're sitting on a plane, like idle, you feel claustrophobic enough as it is. Plus you've got the mask on. So that was challenging. And they're like only 15 minutes at a time when you're eating. So after 15 minutes, you had to put it back up. So because COVID doesn't spread when you pull it down to eat, it only spreads. So anyway, so we got to the hotel. We had a really good time. The sunshine was amazing. And that's another thing we forget here as Canadians, right? Like you go down there and everything's just warm. Everyone's happy. Of course, I know you're on vacation, but like the weather does something to me. Like all of a sudden my knees felt good. Like I was like, oh my God, after a couple of days, I'm like bounding around on the sand and I didn't feel like sore. I slept better. So anyway, I had a really good time. It was much needed. I encourage people to get out and do that if they can, and they're able to, of course, because it was a nice way to break up the winter and get out for a bit.
Of the minutes that you spent there, the hundreds of minutes, how many minutes did you have a shirt on for?
I'm not one of those guys, Wally. So it's funny you say that. Like when I'm down there, like I'm wearing shoes everywhere. Like even around the pool, I've got my shoes and socks on because my feet get really dry. And and I wore t-shirts almost all the time. Occasionally I would take them off if I wanted to get sun, but I'm not one of those guys walking around like trying to, like, you know what I mean? Like I hide. I find a nice little hiding spot and I just keep to myself. So it was good. But we were working out, like my wife and I, we were working out every morning. We were in the gym around 6:30, getting a good lift in. But before that, I would go down to the beach and take chairs. And this one day, one of the workers gave me a hard time. He's like, well, you need to be back here by 7, sir. I'll refrain from using the Mexican accent because I'm sure that won't go over well with the viewers. But so we were kind of arguing about it. I'm like, dude, like no one's out here until 9 o'clock. Like I think he was fishing for tips. I was always taking care of them when I got back. But I think he was being he was being selfish. You know, he wanted it right. He wanted up front. So
maybe his shift might be ending or something. He just wants to make sure you remember. Okay, good. You got your seats?
In the end, I power moved it. I took my hat off and a couple like personal items on me. I put them on the chairs and I walked away. So he couldn't take anything away from me or eliminate the towels. But we had a really good schedule. We weren't drinking a ton. We went with another couple, had a great time, had a blast. Nice to be back. So yeah,
I saw a boat. You guys did some boating.
Yeah, we rented a boat. We went out and saw the whales. Have you guys ever seen whales? That was my first time. Unbelievable. Like these freaking things, man. Like you always think whale watching would be painful and boring. Like incredible. And I was just getting cranked on the boat too. So we had a lot of champagne. Really enjoyed that. By the end of the boat trip, we're fist pumping, you know, with the music playing. Yeah. So I have a lot of videos. I'm not going to share those ones.
Okay.
Really good time. We had a blast. That was one night that I kind of I drank a lot, but otherwise it was very conservative for the whole trip.
Okay. Yeah. I don't want to get into your social media posts. Were you more Maverick or Goose when you walked on the beach?
I mean, I get the question, but I was with my wife. Like, it's not like I was with a bunch of guys playing beach volleyball, which I would have enjoyed, but I can't jump because of my knee. So I guess Goose. I was more goofy than Mav, right? So yeah, I'm not sure how to answer that question.
It's okay. Well, we're glad to have you back because.
Thank you.
Did you bring us gifts? Because normally when you come back, you always bring people gifts when you're away.
We had to buy gifts for my kids. And then of course, my mother-in-law and my mother for looking after my kids for us while we were gone. So you guys kind of fell down the priority list of gifts. I'm sorry. I didn't even buy myself anything, like no tequila. I didn't bring anything back.
Yeah, but okay. You had a trip. We didn't have, we just stayed here and manned the fort. I did Sports Interaction, 6 games. I was 2-4. By the way, in my predictions, I was horrendous. So
I mean, you tried, right?
I got to the point I didn't want to do it. I'm like, I can't pick a winner. I don't want to do this anymore.
Well, you just it's all good.
All right. Before we go, by the way, just on a sad note, by the way, the Sens family, it's if you're in the Sens family, you're in it for life. And Brad Joyelle was a member of the Sens community for 10 years. He was the team masseuse. I know before Meth and before Craig, you guys got there, but I knew him pretty well. Actually, I just spoke to him a couple of weeks ago. He passed away suddenly last week at the age of 52. Huge member of the Minor Hockey Coaching Association here in Canada. And he's also was a business owner here in Barrhaven as well. So to his wife, Victoria, and their kids, Sydney, Ryder, and Piper, we just want to pass along our condolences, as Brad was a big part of the family and he will be missed. We will see you guys on Monday. Take care. That is the Wally Methot Show for this week.